Daniel Carter stared at the empty chair across from him as festive laughter erupted from nearby tables. His blind date had disappeared to the restroom 20 minutes ago, the moment she'd learned about Lily. The waiter's pitying glance confirmed what he already knew. She wasn't coming back. Christmas night, surrounded by perfect families in their holiday sweaters, and he was being ghosted in real time. Again. But when a striking woman in an elegant black dress approached his table with an expression that was neither sympathy nor curiosity, Daniel had no idea that this humiliating moment was about to become the catalyst for everything that followed. If you want to see how a chance encounter on the loneliest night of the year transforms into something extraordinary, stay with me until the end. And please, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The restaurant was drowning in Christmas cheer, and Daniel Carter was drowning right along with it. Twinkling lights wrapped around every column. Garland draped the windows. A quartet in the corner played jazz renditions of holiday classics, while couples leaned across candlelit tables, hands intertwined, eyes locked in that particular glow that comes from being exactly where you want to be with exactly who you want to be with. Daniel sat alone at a table for two, watching the door his date had disappeared through 23 minutes ago. 23 minutes. He'd checked his phone 4 times. The waiter had refilled his water twice, each time with a sympathetic tilt of his head that made Daniel's stomach clench with humiliation. She wasn't in the restroom. She was gone. The evening had started with such promise. Sarah, a marketing executive his friend had insisted he meet, had seemed genuinely interested during their phone conversations. Funny, thoughtful, easy to talk to. When she'd suggested meeting on Christmas night, Daniel had been touched. It meant she understood. The holidays were hard for single parents. You couldn't exactly leave your kid on Christmas Day, but once they were asleep, tucked in with visions of sugar plums and new toys, maybe you could steal a few hours for yourself. Lily had been so excited for him. His 7-year-old daughter had helped him pick out his shirt that morning, insisting on the blue one because it makes your eyes look nice, Daddy. She'd even let him go without their traditional Christmas movie marathon, settling instead for a viewing of the Polar Express with Mrs. Chen, their neighbor. You deserve to be happy, Lily had told him with a solemnness that broke his heart. 7 years old, and she was already worried about him. The date had started well enough. Sarah was even prettier than her photos, with warm brown eyes and an easy smile. They'd ordered wine, shared an appetizer, laughed about the aggressive cheerfulness of their waiter. Then, inevitably, the conversation had turned personal. So, what made Christmas night work for you? Sarah had asked, swirling her Pinot Noir. My daughter, Daniel had said, unable to keep the pride from his voice. Lily, she's 7. Once she's asleep, I've got a few hours of freedom. The change had been instantaneous. Sarah's smile had frozen, then fractured. Her eyes had darted away, suddenly fascinated by something across the room. You have a daughter, she'd said flatly. Yes. She's incredible, smart, funny, kind. Your profile didn't mention kids. I thought we'd covered this on the phone? Daniel's mind raced back through their conversation, certain he'd mentioned Lily. Hadn't he? We definitely did not. Sarah had set down her wine glass with the careful precision of someone trying very hard to remain polite. I need to use the restroom. That was 23 minutes ago. Now, watching a family at the next table, mom, dad, 2 kids sticky with dessert, Daniel felt the familiar weight settle over his shoulders. This was his life now. This was what dating looked like when you were a 34-year-old single father with a mortgage, a demanding job, and a daughter who depended on you for everything. Sarah wasn't coming back. And honestly, Daniel couldn't even blame her. He signaled for the check, mentally calculating how much this humiliation would cost him. The appetizer they'd shared, his untouched entree, 2 glasses of wine. At least $70 to sit alone in a restaurant full of happy couples on Christmas night. Excuse me. The voice was low, confident, with a hint of amusement that made Daniel look up sharply. A woman stood beside his table, not Sarah. This woman was taller, older, maybe late 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail and eyes that assessed him with unsettling directness. She wore a black dress that suggested expensive simplicity, and she carried herself with the kind of assurance that comes from never doubting your right to be anywhere. I'm sorry, Daniel said automatically. Are you waiting for this table? No. She glanced at the empty chair across from him, then back at his face. I'm Adrienne Blake, and I have a proposition for you. Daniel blinked. I'm sorry? May I sit? Sure. He half stood in confusion as she slid into the chair Sarah had abandoned, moving with economical grace. Up close, she was striking rather than beautiful, with sharp cheekbones and an expression of focused intelligence that made him suddenly aware of how disheveled he probably looked. You've been stood up, Adrienne said. It wasn't a question. Heat crept up Daniel's neck. That obvious? I've been watching you check your phone every 3 minutes for the past half hour. Either you're waiting for a very important call, or you're hoping for a text that isn't coming. She folded her hands on the table. I'm going to guess the latter. And you thought you'd come over to… what? Offer sympathy? No. Her lips curved slightly. I thought I'd offer an alternative. Daniel stared at her, utterly lost. This had to be some kind of joke. Maybe Sarah had put her up to it, some cruel prank to cap off an already humiliating evening. He looked around for hidden cameras. I'm not mocking you, Adrienne said, reading his expression with unnerving accuracy. I'm serious. Hear me out. Hear what out? She leaned back slightly, studying him with those sharp, assessing eyes. I've been sitting at the bar for the past 45 minutes, watching you. Watching your date arrive, watching the conversation go south, watching her disappear and not come back. Want to know what gave it away? Please enlighten me, Daniel said, his embarrassment curdling into irritation. You mentioned your daughter. He went still. How could you possibly… I read lips. She shrugged. Useful skill in business. The moment you said daughter, her entire body language changed. She checked out immediately. Adrienne tilted her head. How old? I'm sorry? Your daughter. How old is she? Daniel's instinct was to shut this down, to tell this stranger to mind her own business and find her own table. But there was something in her directness, her complete lack of judgment, that made him answer honestly. 7. And you're raising her alone? Yes. How long? Since she was 2. The familiar ache pulsed in his chest. My wife died. Cancer. Adrienne's expression didn't shift to pity, which he appreciated more than she could know. Instead, she nodded slowly. That's hard. I'm sorry. Thank you. Do you love being a father? The question caught him off guard. Yes, more than anything. But dating is a nightmare. Daniel let out a harsh laugh. That's one way to put it. Because they all want the fantasy, Adrienne continued, her voice matter of fact. They want the romance, the adventure, the spontaneous weekend trips. They don't want the reality of a man with responsibilities, with a child who comes first, with a life that's already full and complicated. That about covers it. And you've tried, multiple times, different apps, different approaches. Your friends set you up, you go on dates when you can, which isn't often, and it always ends the same way. She gestured to the empty chair. Like tonight. Daniel felt exposed, like she'd reached into his chest and pulled out every frustrated thought he'd had about dating for the past 5 years. Who are you? I told you, Adrienne Blake. She pulled a business card from her clutch and slid it across the table. I run a tech company, Cloud Infrastructure Solutions. We do about $40 million a year. He picked up the card. The logo was sleek, professional. Blake Solutions, CEO. Congratulations, Daniel said slowly. But I still don't understand what you want. I want to propose something unconventional. Adrienne folded her hands again, her posture relaxed but her gaze intense. I'm 38 years old. I've built a successful company from the ground up. I have financial security, a beautiful home, the respect of my peers. I have everything except the one thing I've realized I actually want. Which is? A family. Daniel waited for the punchline. When none came, he said carefully, You could have that. You're successful, attractive, clearly intelligent. I could have romance, she corrected. I could have a relationship. I've had several, but they all fail for the same reason yours do. I'm too focused on my work, too independent, too set in my ways. Men say they want a successful woman until they actually date one. Then they want her to be less successful, less busy, more available, more accommodating. Her jaw tightened slightly. I'm not interested in making myself smaller to fit into someone's fantasy. So what are you interested in? Partnership. Adrienne leaned forward slightly. Not romance. Not the messy, uncertain process of dating and hoping and getting disappointed over and over again. A partnership. Clear expectations, mutual respect, shared goals. Daniel's heart was beating faster now, though he wasn't sure if it was from confusion or something else. I'm not following. You need a partner, Adrienne said simply. Someone who won't run away when they learn about your daughter. Someone who can be a stable presence in both your lives. Someone who understands that your daughter comes first and doesn't resent that. And I need, she paused, something vulnerable flickering across her face for the first time. I need to be part of something real, something that matters more than quarterly earnings and market share. You're saying, Daniel couldn't quite form the words. I'm saying we should consider an arrangement. Adrienne's voice was steady, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. Get to know each other, see if we're compatible. Not romantically, at least not at first, but as partners, as a potential family. You're insane, Daniel said flatly. I'm practical. You're proposing what? Get married? You don't even know me. I know you're a dedicated father. I know you've been sitting here for half an hour humiliated, but you haven't left because you wanted to give your date the benefit of the doubt. That speaks to character. She tilted her head. I know you work in, let me guess, engineering, something technical, software development. Good. You think logically. You understand systems and processes. You can appreciate what I'm suggesting without dismissing it as crazy. It is crazy. Is it? Adrienne's eyes held his. Marriages used to be arranged all the time. Partnerships based on mutual benefit, compatibility, shared values. It's only in the last century that we decided romance should be the foundation of family. And look how well that's working. 50% divorce rate. Millions of single parents struggling to date while raising children. People spending years searching for that perfect romantic connection that statistically probably doesn't exist. Daniel shook his head, but he couldn't quite look away from her. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Adrienne pulled out her phone, unlocked it, and set it on the table. Here's what I'm proposing. We exchange numbers. We meet for coffee. We talk, really talk, about what we want, what we expect, what our lives look like. We see if there's a foundation for something. If there's not, we walk away. No harm done. And if there is, then we keep talking. We introduce me to your daughter, carefully, slowly. We see if I can be a positive presence in her life. We build trust. We see if this could actually work. This is insane, Daniel repeated, but his voice lacked conviction. Maybe, Adrienne smiled slightly, or maybe it's the sanest thing either of us has considered in years. What do you have to lose? Another 6 months of failed first dates? Another year of your daughter watching you come home disappointed? Another Christmas alone at a table for two? The words hit harder than they should have. Daniel looked down at his hands, at the wedding ring he'd finally removed 3 years ago, but still sometimes reached for. At the calluses from building Lily's elaborate dollhouse last month. At the evidence of a life that was full and meaningful, but also lonely in ways he tried not to think about. One coffee, Adrienne said quietly. That's all I'm asking. One conversation. Daniel looked up at her, really looked. At the intelligence in her eyes, the confidence in her posture, the complete absence of pity or judgment. At someone who seemed to understand exactly what he was going through because she was going through her own version of it. Why me? He asked finally. There are a lot of single fathers in this city. Why walk over to my table? Adrienne was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. Because when your date walked out, you didn't get angry. You didn't call her names or complain to the waiter. You just sat there, looking sad. And then you smiled at the family next to you when their kid dropped his fork. You smiled at them even though you were hurting. That told me everything I needed to know about the kind of person you are. Something in Daniel's chest loosened. He thought about going home to Mrs. Chen's apartment, paying the babysitter, checking on Lily sleeping in her new Christmas pajamas. He thought about next week, next month, next year. More failed dates, more awkward conversations, more years of Lily growing up watching him try and fail to find happiness. Or he could do something completely insane. He could have coffee with a stranger who'd propositioned him in a restaurant on Christmas night. Daniel picked up his phone. "What's your number?" Adrienne's smile was genuine this time, reaching her eyes. She rattled off 10 digits and he typed them in with hands that shook slightly. "Adrienne Blake," he said, saving the contact. "Daniel Carter," she replied, and he realized he'd never actually told her his name. She must have heard Sarah use it earlier. The waiter appeared with Daniel's check. Adrienne pulled out a credit card before Daniel could react. "I'm buying," she said firmly. "Consider it an investment in a potentially mutually beneficial partnership." "You really talk like that all the time?" "Mostly." Her eyes glinted with humor. "Is it annoying?" "It's definitely something." She grinned. "I'll take that as a win." As the waiter processed the payment, Daniel studied this strange, confident woman who'd just upended his entire evening. His entire perspective, really. Part of him still thought this was insane. But another part, the part that was tired of being alone, tired of disappointing Lily, tired of the endless cycle of hope and rejection, thought maybe insane was exactly what he needed. "Thursday," Adrienne said, signing the receipt with a flourish. "There's a coffee shop on 5th and Madison. Neutral territory. Say 10 in the morning? I work. Take a late lunch. 1:30? Daniel thought about his schedule, mentally shuffling meetings. "I can make that work." "Good." Adrienne stood and Daniel automatically rose with her. She extended her hand and he shook it. Her grip was firm, businesslike. "I'll see you Thursday, Daniel." "Thursday," he echoed. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, Sarah's an idiot. Any woman who walks away from a devoted father is missing out on something rare. Before Daniel could respond, she was gone, weaving through the tables with confident grace. He watched her disappear into the cold Christmas night, then looked down at his phone where her number glowed on the screen. Adrienne Blake, CEO, tech entrepreneur, completely insane person who just proposed they consider building a family together. Daniel paid the waiter a generous tip. The guy had suffered through his humiliation after all, and headed out into the December cold. The streets were quieter now, most families home with their trees and presents and togetherness. His breath formed clouds in the frigid air as he walked to his car, mind spinning. He should delete her number. This was crazy. You didn't build a family on a business proposition. You didn't marry a stranger because you were tired of failed dates. You didn't... His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Thank you for not immediately calling security. I realize my approach was unconventional, but I meant every word. See you Thursday." Daniel sat in his car, the engine running, heat slowly filling the space. He read the text 3 times, then he typed a response. "Thursday, 1:30. I must be as crazy as you are." Her response came immediately. "Possibly. Or possibly we're both just tired of pretending the traditional approach is working." "Fair point. Get home safely, Daniel. Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, Adrienne." He drove home through empty streets, his mind churning. "Mrs." Chen answered the door in her bathrobe, waving off his apology for being late. "Lily was an angel," she said. "Out like a light by 9. How was your date?" Daniel thought about Sarah disappearing, about Adrienne appearing, about a proposition that should have sent him running but instead had given him the first real spark of hope he'd felt in years. "Unexpected," he said finally. Mrs. Chen smiled knowingly. Sometimes the unexpected is exactly what we need. After she left, Daniel checked on Lily. She was sprawled across her bed in her new Princess Sophia pajamas, one arm flung over the stuffed unicorn Adrienne. He still couldn't believe that was his thought process now. Had been right about. Her dark curls spread across the pillow, her face peaceful in sleep. She looked so much like her mother. The same delicate features, the same long lashes. Sometimes it hurt to look at her. But mostly, it filled him with a fierce, protective love that dwarfed everything else in his life. "I met someone tonight," he whispered, sitting on the edge of her bed. "Someone completely unexpected. I don't know if anything will come of it. Probably nothing, but maybe something." Lily stirred slightly, mumbling in her sleep. Daniel smoothed her hair back from her forehead. "I just want you to be happy, sweetheart." I want us both to be happy. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if what she's suggesting is crazy or brilliant or both, but I guess I'm going to find out. He kissed her forehead, turned off the light, and retreated to his own room. But sleep was impossible. He lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Adrienne Blake and her impossible proposition. Partnership, not romance. Mutual respect. Shared goals. A family built on logic instead of love. Except he'd seen something in her eyes when she talked about wanting to be part of something real. Something vulnerable beneath all that confidence. She wasn't just looking for a business arrangement. She was looking for connection, same as him. She was just approaching it from a different angle. A completely insane angle. But maybe insanity was what they both needed. Daniel picked up his phone one more time, looking at their brief text exchange. On impulse, he typed another message. "Can I ask you something?" Her response came a minute later. Apparently she wasn't sleeping either. "Of course. Why did you come over tonight?" "Really, you could have approached me any time this week. Why Christmas?" The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. When her response came, it was longer than before. "Because I've spent every Christmas for the past 5 years at that restaurant, alone, watching families celebrate while I sit at the bar pretending to work on my phone. Tonight I was watching you, and I realized we were doing the same thing, pretending to be okay with being alone. And I thought, maybe we don't have to be." Daniel's throat tightened. He typed slowly. "I'm glad you came over." "Me too. Now get some sleep. Thursday will be here before you know it. Good night, Adrienne. Good night, Daniel." He set his phone aside and closed his eyes. For the first time in 5 years, Christmas night didn't feel quite so lonely. It felt like possibility. Like maybe, just maybe, the humiliation of being stood up had led to something unexpected. Something that might change everything. Thursday couldn't come fast enough. The coffee shop on 5th and Madison was one of those aggressively trendy places with exposed brick walls, Edison bulbs hanging from the ceiling, and a chalkboard menu written in elaborate cursive that Daniel couldn't quite decipher. He arrived 15 minutes early, ordered something called a flat white because the barista seemed impatient when he asked what they recommended, and settled into a corner table where he could watch the door. His leg bounced under the table. He checked his phone 3 times in as many minutes. No messages from Adrienne. No messages from anyone, actually, except a reminder from his calendar that he had a 1:30 meeting with a stranger to discuss building a family together. Daniel took a sip of his coffee and nearly choked. It was stronger than anything he usually drank, bitter and intense. Fitting, somehow. The past 3 days had been surreal. He'd gone through the motions at work, writing code and attending meetings while his mind spun with questions. What was he doing? Why had he agreed to this? What would he even say to her? But every time doubt crept in, he remembered Lily asking about his date with careful hopefulness in her voice. Remembered coming home alone for the 5th Christmas in a row. Remembered the exhaustion of pretending he was fine with how things were. At 1:28, the door opened and Adrienne walked in. She looked different in daylight. Less intimidating somehow, though no less striking. She wore dark jeans, a cream sweater, and a leather jacket. Her hair down around her shoulders instead of pulled back. When her eyes found him across the crowded shop, she smiled slightly and raised a hand. Daniel stood as she approached, suddenly unsure of the protocol. Handshake? Hug? She solved the problem by sliding into the chair across from him with easy confidence. "You're early," she said. "So are you." "I'm always early. Habit from too many business meetings where being on time means you've already lost the psychological advantage." She glanced at his coffee. "Flat white?" The barista's recommendation. "Too strong for you?" "How did you... Your face when you took that sip was extremely expressive." Adrienne stood again. "I'll be right back." She returned a few minutes later with her own drink and a plain black coffee, which she set in front of Daniel. "Try this instead." He took a cautious sip. "Normal coffee. Perfect, actually." "Thank you." "You're welcome." Adrienne settled back in her chair, cradling her cup between her palms. "So, you didn't delete my number. I considered it. But I'm here. Why?" The directness shouldn't have surprised him by now, but it still caught him off guard. Daniel thought about deflecting, about making a joke, about giving some safe surface-level answer. Instead, he found himself being honest. "Because I'm tired," he said simply. "I'm tired of trying to date and failing. I'm tired of watching my daughter worry about me. I'm tired of pretending I'm okay being alone when I'm not." Adrienne nodded slowly. "I understand that." "Do you? You seem pretty comfortable with who you are." Comfortable and satisfied aren't the same thing. She took a sip of her coffee. "I've built something I'm proud of. My company is successful. My employees respect me. I have financial security most people only dream of. But when I go home at night, I walk into a beautiful house that's completely empty. I eat dinner alone, I work until I'm tired enough to sleep, and I wake up and do it all over again. You could change that. You're successful, attractive. Please don't." Adrienne held up a hand. "I've heard that speech before. From my mother, from well-meaning friends, from men who think they're complimenting me. Yes, I could date. I have dated. It always ends the same way." "Which is?" "They want me to be less focused on work, less opinionated, less successful, or at least less visibly successful. They want a woman who will prioritize their needs, their schedule, their ego. And I can't do that. I won't." Her jaw tightened. "So I stopped trying." Daniel studied her across the table. "But you want a family." "Yes." "Why?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. She was quiet for a moment, her fingers drumming against her cup. When she spoke, her voice was softer. "I grew up in a house where success was everything. My parents valued achievement, status, wealth. Love was conditional, transactional. You earned it by being the best, by winning, by never showing weakness." She looked down at her coffee. "I learned to be successful. I'm very good at it. But somewhere along the way, I realized I don't actually know how to connect with people, how to be close to someone without turning it into a competition or a business arrangement." "And you think a partnership with a stranger will teach you that?" "I think a child might." Adrienne met his eyes. "Children don't care about your net worth or your quarterly earnings. They care if you show up, if you're kind, if you keep your promises. They're honest in a way adults have forgotten how to be. And I want—" She trailed off, then continued quietly. "I want to matter to someone in a way that has nothing to do with what I can do for them." Something in Daniel's chest shifted. He'd expected a lot of things from this conversation, but not raw vulnerability, not this glimpse beneath the confident exterior. "Lily matters to me more than anything in the world," he said carefully. "If we were to even consider this, whatever this is, she would have to come first. Always. I would expect nothing less." "I'm serious, Adrienne. I won't let anyone hurt her. If there's even a chance this could hurt her." "Then we don't do it." Adrienne leaned forward. "Daniel, I'm not proposing we rush into anything. I'm proposing we get to know each other, slowly, carefully. If at any point either of us feels this isn't working, we walk away. No harm, no pressure. And if it is working, what then? Then we keep going. We see where it leads." She paused. "I know this is unconventional. I know most people would think we're crazy. But answer me honestly. Has the conventional approach been working for you?" Daniel thought about the past 5 years. The failed first dates, the awkward conversations, the women who'd lost interest the moment they learned about Lily, the loneliness that had become so familiar he almost didn't notice it anymore. "No," he admitted. "It hasn't." "Then what do we have to lose?" They talked for 2 hours. Daniel forgot about his meetings, forgot about the time, forgot about everything except the woman across from him, who seemed to understand his life in a way no one else had. Adrienne asked about Lily, not in the polite, disinterested way most dates did, but with genuine curiosity. What did she like to do? What were her favorite subjects in school? What made her laugh? Daniel found himself telling stories he hadn't shared in years. About Lily's obsession with dinosaurs when she was 4, how she'd insisted on being called Dr. Lily, paleontologist, for 6 months. About the time she'd raised money for the animal shelter by selling lemonade and homemade cookies, raising $300 through sheer determination. About how she still slept with the stuffed elephant her mother had given her before she died. "She sounds remarkable," Adrienne said softly. "She is." Daniel's throat was tight. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Tell me about your wife. The question was gentle, but it still landed like a blow. Daniel hadn't talked about Emma in a long time. Most people got uncomfortable when grief came up. They changed the subject or offered platitudes that meant nothing. But Adrienne just waited, her expression open and patient. Her name was Emma, Daniel said finally. We met in college. She was an art student, incredibly talented. She could create these paintings that made you feel things you didn't have words for. He smiled at the memory. We were complete opposites. She was spontaneous and creative and always diving into new projects. I was cautious and logical and preferred things planned out. But somehow it worked. How long were you married? 5 years? She was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer when Lily was 18 months old. She fought for 6 months, but he swallowed hard. It moved too fast. By the time Lily was 2, Emma was gone. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Daniel looked down at his hands. The hardest part was watching Lily grow up without her. Emma was such a good mother, even when she was sick. She made these videos for Lily, dozens of them. Birthday messages, advice for when she's older, just her talking about how much she loved her. Lily watches them sometimes. Adrienne was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick. That's beautiful. Heartbreaking, but beautiful. It is. Daniel looked up at her. I tell you this because if we do this, if we even try, you need to understand that Emma is part of our lives. She always will be. I'm not looking for someone to replace her. That's impossible. I wouldn't want to replace her, Adrienne said firmly. She was Lily's mother. Nothing changes that. But maybe there's room for someone else too, someone who can be present in a different way. Maybe. They fell into silence, but it was comfortable. Around them, the coffee shop buzzed with activity. Students typing on laptops, couples sharing pastries, a book club meeting in the corner. Normal Thursday afternoon life continuing while Daniel considered something completely abnormal. Tell me about your company, he said finally. Adrienne's face lit up. What do you want to know? Everything. How you started it, what you do, why you love it. She talked for 20 minutes straight, her passion evident in every word. She'd started Blake Solutions 8 years ago with a single client and a laptop in her studio apartment. Now they had 40 employees, offices in 3 cities, and contracts with major corporations. She described the technical challenges, the business strategies, the satisfaction of solving complex problems. You really love it, Daniel observed. I do. It's the one thing in my life I'm completely confident about. She smiled wryly. Everything else is significantly more complicated. Tell me about your family. The smile faded. What do you want to know? You said your parents valued success. Are you close to them? That's complicated. Adrienne's fingers tightened around her cup. My father is a surgeon. Very successful, very demanding. My mother comes from old money. They raised me to be exceptional. Perfect grades, perfect activities, perfect image. I learned early that love was something you earned through achievement. That sounds exhausting. It was. It is. She sighed. I haven't introduced them to anyone I've dated in years. They find something wrong with everyone. Not successful enough, not from the right background, not ambitious enough. It's easier to just keep that part of my life separate. Daniel absorbed this. If we did this, you'd have to introduce me to them eventually. I know. And they'd hate me. Adrienne looked at him sharply. Why would you say that? Because I'm a software developer, not a CEO. I drive a 7-year-old Honda. I live in a 3-bedroom house in the suburbs with a mortgage I'll be paying off for the next 20 years. I'm not exactly what wealthy parents dream of for their daughter. My parents' approval isn't a requirement for my life choices, Adrienne said with an edge in her voice. I stopped seeking it a long time ago. But it would make things harder. Maybe. Probably. She met his eyes. But since when is anything worthwhile easy? They talked until the coffee shop started preparing for the dinner rush. Daniel glanced at his phone and swore softly. What? I've been here for almost 3 hours. I completely missed my afternoon meetings. Adrienne winced. Sorry. I should have been watching the time. No, it's... Daniel ran a hand through his hair. It's fine. I'll deal with it tomorrow. They stood, gathering their things. Outside, the January afternoon was cold and gray, threatening snow. Daniel shoved his hands in his pockets, suddenly uncertain again. So, Adrian said, what do you think? I think this is still crazy. But I want to keep talking. The words came easier than he expected. I want to see if this could actually work. Her smile was genuine, reaching her eyes. Me too. There are conditions, though. Of course. We take this slow, really slow. I don't introduce you to Lily until I'm sure this has potential. And even then, we're careful. She doesn't need another person disappearing from her life. Agreed. And we're honest with each other. Completely honest. If something isn't working, we say it. If we're having doubts, we talk about them. No games, no pretending. I wouldn't want it any other way. Daniel took a breath. Okay, then let's try this. Adrienne extended her hand and he shook it. The gesture was formal, almost businesslike, but her hand was warm in his. When can I see you again? She asked. Saturday? Lily has a birthday party in the afternoon, but I'm free in the evening. Dinner? Sure. Nothing fancy, though. I can't afford the places you probably usually go to. Adrienne laughed. Daniel, I don't care about fancy. I care about getting to know you. We could eat pizza in a parking lot for all I care. Pizza sounds perfect, actually. They exchanged a few more words, made plans for Saturday, and parted ways. Daniel drove home in a daze, his mind replaying the entire conversation. 3 hours. He'd talked to Adrienne for 3 hours and barely noticed the time passing. When was the last time that had happened with anyone? Mrs. Chen was waiting at his house with Lily, who launched herself at him the moment he walked through the door. Daddy, you're late. I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry. I got caught up in a meeting. Mrs. Chen let me have 2 cookies. Just 2? Daniel looked at their neighbor with mock suspicion. Mrs. Chen shrugged, smiling. She was very persuasive. After she left, Daniel helped Lily with her homework, made dinner, and went through their evening routine with half his mind still on Adrienne. Lily noticed, of course. She always noticed. You're thinking about something, she said during bath time, watching him with those sharp, observant eyes. Just work stuff, sweetheart. Is it about the lady? Daniel's hand stilled in the middle of shampooing her hair. What lady? The one from your date. Did you see her again? He should deflect, should tell her it was nothing, but Adrienne's words echoed in his mind. Children are honest in a way adults have forgotten how to be. I saw someone today, he said carefully. A friend. We had coffee. Is she nice? Very nice. Will I meet her? Maybe, someday, if things work out. Lily considered this, her small face serious. I hope she's nice to you, Daddy. You deserve someone nice. Daniel's throat tightened. 7 years old, and she was already worried about him. It wasn't fair. She should be thinking about dolls and playgrounds, not whether her father was lonely. Thank you, baby, he managed. Now rinse your hair and let's get you into pajamas. That night, after Lily was asleep, Daniel sat on his couch with his laptop, ostensibly reviewing code but actually doing nothing productive. His phone buzzed. Thank you for today. I enjoyed our conversation more than I've enjoyed anything in a long time. Daniel smiled, typing back. Me too. Saturday can't come fast enough. Nervous? Terrified, actually. You? Same. But it's a good kind of terrified. Is there such a thing? With you, apparently, yes. They texted for another hour, the conversation flowing as easily as it had in person. Adrienne told him about a difficult client meeting, about her favorite obscure coffee blend, about the cat she'd almost adopted last year before realizing her schedule couldn't accommodate a pet. Daniel told her about Lily's dinosaur obsession resurfacing, about the disaster that was his last attempt at cooking anything more complex than pasta, about the comic books he still secretly collected. You're a nerd, Adrienne wrote. I love it. Coming from a tech CEO, I'll take that as a compliment. It absolutely is. When they finally said goodnight, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years. Anticipation, excitement, the sense that maybe, just maybe, something good was about to happen. Saturday arrived faster than expected and slower than he wanted simultaneously. Daniel dropped Lily off at her friend's birthday party, a chaotic affair at a trampoline park that made him grateful to be an adult, and drove home to change. He stood in front of his closet for an embarrassingly long time, trying to decide what to wear for pizza with someone who'd proposed they build a family together. Eventually, he settled on jeans and a dark blue sweater. Casual, but not sloppy. He checked his reflection, remembered Lily saying the blue shirt made his eyes look nice, and felt a pang of anxiety. What was he doing? This was insane. Completely insane. His phone buzzed. On my way. Prepare yourself for the best pizza of your life. I know a place. Bold claim. I'm a bold person. The pizza place Adrian chose was a tiny hole in the wall in a neighborhood Daniel had never been to. The kind of place with 6 tables, a wood-fired oven in the back, and a menu written on a chalkboard in Italian. How did you find this place? Daniel asked as they settled into a corner table. One of my employees is from Naples. He says this is the only place in the city that makes real Neapolitan pizza. Adrian grinned. We're about to find out if he's right. The pizza, when it arrived, was extraordinary. Thin crust, fresh mozzarella, basil that tasted like it had been picked that morning. They ate and talked, the conversation flowing even more easily than it had at the coffee shop. Adrian told him about growing up in Connecticut, about the pressure to be perfect, about the moment she realized she'd rather be successful on her own terms than loved conditionally. Daniel told her about his parents, good people who lived in Florida now, and visited twice a year doting on Lily, but clearly worried about Daniel raising her alone. They keep trying to set me up, he said, stealing a piece of basil from Adrian's pizza. Every time they visit, there's a lovely woman from their retirement community whose niece is single. And the lovely nieces are universally horrified by the single father situation. Their loss. Adrian said it so matter-of-factly that Daniel almost believed her. Can I ask you something? Always. Why a partnership? Why not just keep trying to date normally? You're successful, attractive, interesting. Someone would eventually see past the workaholic thing. Adrian set down her slice, thinking, because I'm tired of pretending to be something I'm not. Tired of downplaying my success or apologizing for my priorities. I want someone who sees exactly who I am and says, that works for me, not someone who tolerates it or tries to change it. And you think I'm that person? I think you might be. You understand what it's like to have someone who comes first. You understand priorities that aren't negotiable. She met his eyes. And you haven't once asked me to be anything other than exactly who I am. Same to you, Daniel said quietly. They finished dinner and walked through the neighborhood, neither ready for the evening to end. The streets were quiet, snow beginning to fall in soft, lazy flakes. Adrian walked close enough that their shoulders brushed occasionally, and Daniel found himself hyper-aware of every point of contact. Tell me something you've never told anyone, Adrian said suddenly. That's a big ask. I know, but if we're really doing this, really trying to build something, we should know each other. Really know each other. Daniel thought about it, then said quietly, sometimes I'm angry at Emma. Adrian glanced at him but didn't speak. I know it's not fair, Daniel continued. She didn't choose to get sick. She fought as hard as she could, but sometimes I'm furious that she left me alone to do this. To raise Lily by myself, to figure out everything without her, to be both parents when I can barely manage being one. He swallowed hard. And then I feel guilty for being angry, which makes me angry all over again. It's this cycle I can't escape. That doesn't sound unfair, Adrian said softly. It sounds human. You don't think it makes me terrible? I think it makes you honest. Grief isn't simple. Anyone who says otherwise is lying. She was quiet for a moment, then said, Your turn. Ask me something. What are you most afraid of? Failing at this. The answer came immediately. Meeting Lily and somehow damaging her. Trying to be part of your family and realizing I don't know how. Being the person who disappoints you both. You won't. You can't know that. No, Daniel agreed, but I can believe it. They walked in silence for a while, snow collecting in Adrian's dark hair. Daniel had the sudden, unexpected urge to brush it away, to touch her, but he held back. Too soon. Too much. I should get back, he said reluctantly. I need to pick up Lily in an hour. Of course. They walked back to their cars. In the parking lot, Adrienne turned to face him, snow falling around them like something from a movie. Daniel? Yes? Thank you for giving this a chance, for not thinking I'm completely insane. Oh, I definitely think you're insane, Russell, he said with a small smile, but in the best possible way. She laughed, and the sound was warm despite the cold night. Same to you. They stood there for a moment, the space between them charged with possibility. Then Adrienne stepped back, breaking the spell. Text me when you get home, she said. I will. He drove to pick up Lily with his mind spinning. This was really happening. He was really considering this. Building something with a woman he'd known for less than a week. Planning a future that defied every conventional piece of dating advice he'd ever heard. It should have felt wrong. Instead, it felt like hope. Over the next 6 weeks, Adrienne became woven into the fabric of Daniel's life in ways he hadn't anticipated. They met twice a week at first, then 3 times, then found themselves texting daily about everything and nothing. She sent him articles about new coding frameworks. He sent her terrible dad jokes that made her laugh despite herself. They talked about their childhoods, their fears, their dreams for the future. And slowly, carefully, Daniel began to believe this might actually work. It was Lily who finally forced the question. She was sitting at the kitchen table one Saturday morning, meticulously coloring a drawing of a T-Rex, when she looked up at Daniel with those 2 perceptive eyes. You're seeing someone, she said. Not a question. Daniel's coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. What makes you say that? You smile at your phone now. You dress nicer. And last Tuesday you hummed while making dinner. You never hum. She went back to her coloring. So who is she? There was no point lying to her. Lily had inherited her mother's intuition along with her eyes. Her name is Adrienne. We've been getting to know each other. Do you like her? I do. Very much. Lily was quiet for a long moment, her crayon moving in careful strokes. Does she know about me? Of course she does. Daniel set down his coffee and crouched beside her chair. Sweetheart, you're the most important person in my life. Anyone who wants to be part of my life needs to understand that. And she does? She does. Can I meet her? Daniel's heart clenched. This was the moment he'd been both anticipating and dreading. Would you want to? Lily looked at him seriously. If she makes you happy, then yes. That afternoon, while Lily was at a playdate, Daniel called Adrienne. She wants to meet you, he said without preamble. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Already? Daniel, I don't want to rush. I know, but she asked, and I think... He ran a hand through his hair. I think maybe it's time. We've been doing this for 6 weeks. I know you. I trust you. And if we're serious about this, about building something real, then eventually she needs to be part of the conversation. I'm terrified, Adrienne said quietly. Me too. What if she doesn't like me? What if she does? Adrienne laughed shakily. You're not supposed to be the optimistic one. That's my job. Someone has to balance out your pessimism. They talked for another hour, planning carefully. Nothing formal, nothing that would feel like pressure, just a casual meeting at the park where Lily loved to play. Low-key, natural, a chance for them to meet without any expectations. The day arrived bright and cold, early March sunshine cutting through the lingering winter chill. Daniel and Lily arrived at the park first, and he watched his daughter race toward the swings with her usual boundless energy. She wore her favorite purple jacket and the light-up sneakers she'd begged for at Christmas. Remember, Daniel called after her, we're meeting my friend Adrienne in a few minutes. I know, Daddy, Lily shouted back, already pumping her legs to gain height. At exactly 2 o'clock, Adrienne appeared at the park entrance. She dressed down, jeans, a simple sweater, her hair in a casual ponytail, but she still radiated that quiet confidence that had first caught Daniel's attention. When her eyes found his across the playground, he saw the nervousness beneath the composure. He walked over to meet her. Hey. Hey! Adrienne's hands were shoved deep in her pockets. I brought cookies. Homemade. Is that okay? I didn't know if she had allergies or dietary restrictions, and I should have asked first, and oh my God, I'm rambling. Adrienne. Daniel touched her elbow gently. Breathe. It's going to be fine. You can't know that. No, but I believe it. He smiled. Come on, let me introduce you. They walked across the playground to where Lily was still swinging, her dark curls flying behind her. When she saw them approaching, she dragged her feet in the mulch to slow down, watching Adrienne with open curiosity. Lily, this is Adrienne, Daniel said as his daughter hopped off the swing. Adrienne, this is Lily. Adrienne crouched down to Lily's eye level, a gesture Daniel appreciated more than he could say. It's really nice to meet you, Lily. Your dad talks about you all the time. Lily tilted her head, assessing. He talks about you too. He says you're really smart and you run a company. I do run a company, but your dad is pretty smart himself. I know, he helps me with my homework. Lily glanced at the bag in Adrian's hand. What's in there? Cookies? Chocolate chip? I wasn't sure if you liked them, but they're my favorite, so I thought I'd share. I love chocolate chip cookies. Lily's reserve cracked slightly. Can I have one? Absolutely. They settled on a bench, and Adrienne produced a container of genuinely impressive cookies. Daniel watched as Lily took one, bit into it, and her eyes widened. These are really good, she said, cookie crumbs on her chin. Thank you. My grandmother's recipe. Will you teach me how to make them? Adrienne looked startled, then pleased. I'd love to, if your dad says it's okay. Can she, Daddy? Daniel felt something warm unfold in his chest. Sure, sweetheart. They spent the afternoon at the park, and Daniel watched something remarkable happen. Adrienne didn't try too hard or talk down to Lily. She engaged with her genuinely, asking about her interests, listening to her rambling stories about school and friends, admiring her skills on the monkey bars without false enthusiasm. And Lily, who could be shy with strangers, bloomed under the attention. Do you have any kids? Lily asked at one point, hanging upside down from the jungle gym. No, I don't. Do you want them? Adrienne glanced at Daniel, then back at Lily. I do, actually. I think being part of a family would be pretty wonderful. It is, Lily said seriously, even when it's just me and Daddy. But sometimes I wish there were more of us. Daniel's throat tightened. She'd never said that before. More how? Adrienne asked gently. Lily dropped from the bars and landed in the mulch with a soft thud. I don't know, just more. My friend Emma has a mom and a dad and a big sister, and they do things together. I love Daddy, but sometimes it feels small, just us. I understand that, Adrienne said. I grew up as an only child. My house felt small sometimes too. Really? Really. I used to wish for siblings or cousins who lived closer, or just more people around. I think wanting more family is pretty normal. Lily considered this, then suddenly asked, Are you Daddy's girlfriend? Daniel nearly choked on air. Adrienne, to her credit, didn't even flinch. That's a good question, she said. Right now we're friends. We're getting to know each other. We're seeing if maybe we could be more than friends someday. Like dating? Sort of, but a little different. How? Adrienne looked at Daniel, who nodded slightly. She turned back to Lily. Well, most people date and try to figure out if they like each other. Your dad and I are friends first. We're taking our time, making sure we're really compatible before we decide if we want to be together. That's smart, Lily said approvingly. Daddy went on a lot of dates that didn't work. Lily, Daniel said, mortified. What? You did. You came home sad a lot. Adrienne's expression softened. Well, I hope this one works better. Me too, Lily said. Then, with the casual cruelty of children, she added, Can I go play on the slide now? Go ahead, sweetheart. As Lily raced off, Daniel sank onto the bench beside Adrienne. I'm so sorry. She has absolutely no filter. Don't apologize. She's honest. I love that about her already. Adrienne watched Lily climb the ladder. She's remarkable, Daniel. Truly. She likes you. How can you tell? She asked if you'd teach her to bake. She only asks that of people she trusts. Adrienne's eyes were suspiciously bright. Really? Really? They sat in comfortable silence, watching Lily play. After a while, Adrienne said quietly, Thank you for this, for trusting me with her. Thank you for being exactly who you are. Not trying too hard. Not pretending to be someone you're not. Just you. Is it working? Daniel looked at her, really looked, at the woman who'd approached a stranger in a restaurant and proposed something impossible, who'd spent weeks getting to know him with patience and honesty, who was sitting on a cold bench in March, watching his daughter play, with genuine warmth in her eyes. "Yeah," he said softly. "It's working." Over the next few weeks, Adrienne became a regular presence in their lives. She joined them for pizza nights and museum trips. She taught Lily to make chocolate chip cookies, their kitchen becoming a war zone of flour and laughter. She read bedtime stories with different voices for each character, making Lily giggle until she couldn't breathe. And somewhere in the midst of it all, the careful partnership Daniel and Adrienne had constructed began transforming into something deeper. It happened in small moments. The way Adrienne's hand would brush his when passing dishes at dinner, the way she looked at him when Lily said something particularly funny, sharing the moment like they were co-conspirators. The way she'd started keeping a toothbrush at his house, clothes in his spare drawer, a spot on his couch that was just hers. One evening in April, after Lily had gone to bed, they sat on that couch with glasses of wine, exhausted from a day at the Science Museum. "She asked me today if you were going to be her new mom," Daniel said quietly. Adrienne's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that's not how it works, that nobody could replace her mom, but that sometimes families grow in different ways." "And what did she say?" "She said she liked how our family was growing." Daniel set down his glass. "Adrienne, I need to tell you something." "Okay." She looked nervous. "This started as an arrangement, a practical partnership between two people who were tired of being alone. But somewhere along the way, it became something else for me." He turned to face her fully. "I care about you, not as a convenient solution to my problems, but as you. The woman who makes terrible puns and works too late and burns cookies when she's distracted. The woman who listens to Lily talk about dinosaurs for 45 minutes without getting bored. The woman who makes me laugh and challenges me and has become someone I can't imagine not having in my life." Adrienne set down her own glass with shaking hands. "Daniel, I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I just needed you to know. This isn't just practical anymore. Not for me." "Good," Adrienne said, her voice rough. "Because it stopped being practical for me about 3 weeks ago, when you fixed my laptop and made me soup because I had a cold and didn't lecture me about working too much even though we both knew I should rest." Daniel felt something loosen in his chest. "So what does that make us?" "I don't know. More than friends. Maybe not quite a couple yet. Something in between." "I can work with in between." Adrienne laughed, then reached out and took his hand. It was the first time they'd really touched, beyond casual brushes and accidental contact, and the warmth of her palm against his sent electricity up his arm. "I want this to work so badly, it terrifies me," she admitted. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. For you to realize I'm not cut out for this, that I don't know how to be part of a family, that I'm going to disappoint you. You won't. You can't know that. I know you show up. Every time you show up, you're patient with Lily even when she's being difficult. You listen when I need to vent about work. You're learning to cook real meals instead of just ordering takeout. You're trying, Adrienne. That's what matters." "I want to meet your parents," she said suddenly. Daniel blinked. "What?" "You've told me about them. They visit soon, right? For Lily's birthday? I want to meet them. I want them to know I'm serious about this." "Adrienne, they're going to ask a lot of questions. Some of them invasive. My mother is lovely, but she has no boundaries, and my father can be... I can handle it." Her grip on his hand tightened. "I want to be part of your life, all of it. Even the uncomfortable family dinner parts." "And what about your parents?" Daniel asked carefully. They'd skirted around the topic of her family for weeks. "Do I get to meet them?" Adrienne's expression clouded. "That's more complicated." "Why?" "Because they'll judge you, and Lily, and they'll find you both wanting, not because of who you are, but because you're not who they think I should be with." Her voice was bitter. "They've spent my entire life trying to control my choices. I won't let them control this one." "So we just never tell them?" "No. I'll tell them, eventually. I just need time to figure out how." She looked at him pleadingly. "Can we take it one set of parents at a time?" Daniel could have pushed, should have maybe. but he saw the genuine distress in her eyes and chose understanding instead. Okay, one set at a time. His parents arrived on a Thursday in late April, his mother sweeping into the house with bags of presents for Lily and sharp-eyed assessment of everything else. His father followed more sedately, hugging Daniel with genuine warmth before turning his attention to his granddaughter. "She's here," Lily announced, bouncing on her toes. "Adrienne's coming for dinner, and you get to meet her." Daniel's mother, Patricia, turned to him with raised eyebrows. "Adrienne?" "The friend I told you about on the phone," Daniel said carefully. "The friend who's been spending a lot of time here," Patricia clarified. "The friend Lily talks about constantly. The friend who taught her to make cookies." "Yes, Mom, that friend. Is she your girlfriend?" It's complicated." "Relationships usually are, dear," Patricia smiled. "I'm looking forward to meeting her." Adrienne arrived exactly on time, carrying flowers for Patricia and a bottle of wine for his father. She wore a simple dress and looked terrified despite her composed exterior. Daniel met her at the door, taking the offerings from her trembling hands. "You okay?" he murmured. "Terrified. They're going to love you." "You don't know that." "I know my parents. Trust me." Dinner was less awkward than Daniel feared and more revealing than he expected. His mother asked questions with the subtlety of a freight train, wanting to know everything about Adrienne's company, her background, her intentions. His father was quieter but observed everything with the careful attention of someone who missed nothing, and Adrienne handled it beautifully. She answered questions honestly, deflected the invasive ones with humor, and engaged with both his parents as equals. When Lily told a rambling story about their museum trip, Adrienne listened with genuine interest, adding details Daniel had forgotten. "She's wonderful," Patricia said later, after Adrienne had left and Lily was in bed. They sat in Daniel's kitchen with tea, his parents clearly not ready to retreat to their hotel yet. "She is," Daniel agreed. "And you're serious about her?" "Yes." "Even though you've only known her a few months?" "Even though," his father spoke up for the first time. "She's good with Lily. That's what matters. I watched them together tonight. She doesn't try too hard, doesn't force it, just meets Lily where she is." "That's important to you?" Daniel asked. "It's everything. Lily's your priority. Anyone who doesn't understand that isn't right for you." His father's eyes were kind. "This Adrienne understands it. I can tell." Patricia reached across the table and squeezed Daniel's hand. "Are you happy?" The question was simple but landed with weight. Was he happy? He thought about the past few months, about laughter at dinner tables and quiet moments on the couch, about Adrienne's hand in his and the way Lily had started calling her to share good news from school, about feeling, for the first time since Emma died, like his life might have room for something new without betraying something old. "Yes," he said quietly, "I'm happy." "Then we're happy for you," Patricia said firmly, "even if the timeline is unconventional. Life doesn't always follow the script we expect." They left a few days later after Lily's birthday party, where Adrienne had shown up with a carefully chosen present, a junior paleontology kit that had Lily squealing with delight. His mother hugged Adrienne goodbye with genuine warmth, and his father shook her hand with approval clear in his eyes. "See?" Daniel said after they'd gone, watching Adrienne help Lily carefully excavate plastic dinosaur bones from plaster. "I told you they'd love you. Your parents are wonderful, nothing like mine." There was something in her voice that made Daniel pause. "Adrienne?" She looked up from the excavation. "When am I going to meet your parents?" The excavation tool stilled in her hands. "I don't know." "It's been 3 months. Your parents don't even know I exist, do they?" "They know I'm seeing someone." "But not who. Not about Lily. Not that this is serious." Adrienne stood, brushing plaster dust from her jeans. "Can we talk about this later? When Lily's not here?" "Sure." But the unease sat in Daniel's stomach like a stone. That night, after Lily was asleep, they finally had the conversation Daniel had been avoiding. They sat on the porch, the late April night mild enough to be comfortable. "Tell me about them," Daniel said. "Really tell me. Why are you so afraid of me meeting them?" Adrienne was quiet for a long time, staring out at the dark street. When she spoke, her voice was controlled, but he could hear the emotion beneath. "My parents are difficult. They have very specific ideas about who I should be with. Old money, established family, the right connections. They've spent my life trying to shape me into their vision of success. And I don't fit that vision. No, you don't. Not because of who you are, but because of where you come from. You're a software developer, not a CEO. You drive a Honda, not a Mercedes. You have a mortgage and a daughter and a normal middle-class life. She looked at him finally. They'll see all of that as beneath me. The words stung even though Daniel had expected them. And what do you see? I see the man who makes me laugh, who challenges me to be better, who's teaching me what it means to be part of a real family instead of a business arrangement. Her voice cracked. I see everything I want, but they won't see that. They'll only see what you're not. So you're going to hide me forever? No, I just need time to prepare them, to make them understand this is serious. It's been 3 months, Adrienne. How much more time do you need? I don't know. The words burst out of her, sharp with frustration. I don't know how to make them accept this. Accept you. Accept Lily. They're going to fight me on this, and I'm trying to figure out how to protect you both from that. Daniel stood, pacing the small porch. I don't need protection, and neither does Lily. What we need is for you to decide if we're worth fighting for. Of course you are. Then fight. Tell them about us. Deal with their judgment. Because hiding feels an awful lot like being ashamed, and I won't be someone's secret. Adrienne flinched like he'd struck her. I'm not ashamed of you. Then prove it. They stared at each other in the dim porch light, the first real conflict of their relationship crackling between them. Finally, Adrienne nodded. Okay, I'll tell them. Next week. My mother wants to have lunch. I'll tell her then. And after? After, I'll deal with whatever happens. But Daniel, she reached for his hand. They're going to say things. Awful things, probably. And I need you to trust that whatever they say doesn't reflect how I feel. Can you do that? He wanted to say yes easily. But he thought about his daughter sleeping inside, about the family they were building, about the vulnerability of letting someone in this deeply. I can try, he said finally. Adrienne squeezed his hand. That's all I'm asking. But when the following Tuesday arrived, Daniel got a text just before noon. Lunch with my mother. Wish me luck. I'll call you after. He tried to work, but concentration was impossible. He checked his phone every 5 minutes, willing it to ring. An hour passed, then 2, then 3. Finally, at 4:30, his phone rang. How did it go? He asked without preamble. She wants to meet you. Adrienne's voice was strained. She and my father both. Dinner at their house this Friday. That's good, right? Daniel, you don't understand. This isn't a casual family dinner. This is an evaluation. They're going to pick apart everything about you, about us, looking for reasons why it won't work. Then we'll show them it will. I don't think you understand what you're walking into. Then help me understand. Tell me what to expect. Adrienne was quiet for so long Daniel thought the call had dropped. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. They're going to try to break us up. They're going to offer you money to go away, or threaten me with cutting me off, or say terrible things about Lily. And I'm going to fight them. But it's going to get ugly. Daniel's hand tightened on the phone. Are you asking me not to come? No, I'm warning you what you're in for, because once we do this, once you meet them and they know about Lily, there's no going back. They'll be in our lives, for better or worse. I thought you said their approval didn't matter. It doesn't, but their presence does. They're my parents, Daniel. No matter how difficult they are, I can't just cut them out entirely. He understood what she wasn't saying. Meeting her parents meant committing to this relationship publicly, irrevocably. It meant choosing each other despite the complications. Friday, Daniel said firmly. What time? 7. It's formal, suit and tie. I'll be there. Daniel, I'll be there, Adrienne. We're in this together, remember? Whatever happens, we face it together. He heard her breath catch. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I might completely embarrass you. Impossible. There was a smile in her voice now. You're way too proper for that. They talked for a few more minutes, Adrienne giving him details about her parents, the house, what to expect. When they hung up, Daniel sat for a long moment, staring at his phone. Friday. He was going to meet the parents who'd made Adrienne afraid to let people in. The parents who would judge him and find him wanting. The parents who might say terrible things about his daughter. He should be terrified. Instead, he felt determined. He'd spent years protecting Lily from people who didn't appreciate her, from women who saw her as an inconvenience, from a world that sometimes felt too harsh for someone so precious. He could protect her from Adrian's parents too. And more than that, he could show them exactly what they'd be losing if they drove Adrian away. Because somewhere over the past 3 months, this unconventional arrangement had become the realest thing in his life, and he wasn't about to let anyone take it away without a fight. Friday arrived with the weight of inevitability. Daniel stood in front of his closet that evening, staring at the single suit he owned, the one he'd worn to Emma's funeral and hadn't touched since. His hands trembled slightly as he pulled it from its garment bag, the charcoal fabric still crisp despite years of neglect. "Daddy, you look fancy," Lily said from his doorway, watching him struggle with his tie. "I have an important dinner tonight, sweetheart." With Adrian's parents? He told her that morning, keeping it simple. Sometimes honesty was the only option with a child who noticed everything. Yes, with Adrian's parents. Lily came into the room and climbed onto his bed, sitting cross-legged in her pajamas. "Are they nice?" Daniel thought about how to answer that. "They're important to Adrian, so I want to make a good impression." "What if they don't like you?" The question hit harder than it should have. He abandoned the tie and sat beside her. "Then I'll deal with it. But Lily, no matter what happens tonight, nothing changes between us and Adrian, okay? Promise?" "Promise." But even as he said it, Daniel felt the lie in his bones. Everything could change tonight. Adrian had warned him, prepared him, but he knew that sometimes warnings weren't enough. Mrs. Chen arrived at 6:30 to stay with Lily. Daniel kissed his daughter goodbye, her small arms tight around his neck. "Be brave, Daddy," she whispered. "Always, sweetheart." The drive to Greenwich took 45 minutes, each mile taking Daniel further from his comfortable suburban neighborhood and deeper into old money territory. The houses grew larger, the lawns more manicured, the cars and driveways worth more than his annual salary. By the time he pulled up to the address Adrian had given him, his stomach was churning with anxiety. The Blake family estate was everything he'd feared. Massive stone facade, circular driveway with a fountain, security gates that had required him to buzz for entry. The kind of house that appeared in magazines and made normal people feel inadequate. Adrienne met him at the door before he could knock. She wore a navy dress and pearls, her hair styled in a way he'd never seen before, elegant and formal and somehow less like herself. "You came," she said, relief evident in her voice. "Of course I came." He took her hands, found them ice cold despite the mild evening. "Hey, look at me." She met his eyes, and he saw the fear there. "Whatever happens in there, we're in this together," Daniel said firmly. "They can judge me all they want. They can say whatever they want, but they can't change how I feel about you or what we're building, okay?" Adrienne nodded, but her expression remained tense. "Just, please don't take anything they say personally. They're going to try to get under your skin. That's what they do." "I've handled difficult people before." "Not like this, you haven't." Before Daniel could respond, the door opened wider to reveal a woman who could only be Adrian's mother. Tall, slender, with the same sharp features as her daughter, but none of the warmth. She wore an expression of polite disdain that must have taken years to perfect. "Mother, this is Daniel Carter," Adrienne said, her voice carefully neutral. "Daniel, my mother, Victoria Blake." "Mrs. Blake." Daniel extended his hand. "Thank you for inviting me to your home." Victoria's handshake was brief and cold. "Mr. Carter, do come in. My husband is waiting in the dining room." The interior of the house was exactly what Daniel expected. High ceilings, expensive art, furniture that looked uncomfortable and probably cost more than his car. Everything was pristine, perfect, and utterly devoid of warmth. It felt like a museum, not a home. Adrienne's father stood when they entered the dining room. Robert Blake was a tall man with silver hair and the kind of presence that came from decades of being the most important person in any room. His handshake was firmer than his wife's, his assessment more direct. "Daniel, I understand you're a software developer." "Yes, sir. I work for Meridian Technologies." "Meridian." Robert's tone suggested he'd never heard of them. "And what exactly do you do there?" "I'm a senior developer on the cloud infrastructure team. We build scalable solutions for enterprise clients." "Fascinating." The word dripped with disinterest. Please, sit. The dining room table could have seated 20 people comfortably. The four of them clustered at one end felt absurd, like children playing dress-up in their parents' house. A server Daniel hadn't noticed appeared with wine, filling glasses with practiced efficiency before disappearing again. So, Victoria said as the first course arrived, some kind of soup Daniel didn't recognize. Adrienne tells us you have a daughter. Here it was, the first salvo. Daniel felt Adrienne tense beside him. Yes, Lily, she's 7. And her mother? Passed away 5 years ago. How unfortunate. Victoria's sympathy sounded rehearsed. It must be quite difficult raising a child alone. It has its challenges. But Lily is an incredible kid. Being her father is the best part of my life. I'm sure. Victoria took a delicate sip of soup. And you're comfortable bringing a child into Adrienne's life, given her demanding career? Mother, Adrienne started. It's a reasonable question, darling. Mr. Carter is a single father. Presumably, he needs someone who can help shoulder that responsibility. Is that what you're looking for, Mr. Carter? A mother for your daughter? The implication was clear and cutting. Daniel was a gold digger, looking for a wealthy woman to solve his childcare problems. He felt anger flash hot in his chest, but forced his voice to remain calm. I'm looking for a partner, someone who understands that family comes first, who values honesty and commitment, who can be a positive presence in both my and Lily's lives. Adrienne is all of those things. How convenient that she's also financially secure, Robert said dryly. Dad, that's enough, Adrienne said, her voice sharp. Is it? We're simply trying to understand the nature of this relationship. You spring this on us that you're seriously involved with a man we've never met, who has a child, who comes from a completely different background, and expect us not to have questions? Questions are fine, accusations are not. We're not accusing anyone of anything, Victoria said smoothly. We're simply concerned. You've always been so focused on your career, darling. This seems rather sudden. We've been seeing each other for 4 months. 4 months? Robert laughed without humor. And you think that's long enough to make life-altering decisions? Emma and I got engaged after 3 months, Daniel said quietly. When you know, you know. Emma being your late wife? Victoria's tone suggested she was discussing something mildly distasteful. How does your daughter feel about you moving on? Surely she must have some attachment to her mother's memory. The question was designed to wound, and it did. Daniel's jaw tightened. Lily remembers her mother and always will, but she also understands that life continues, that our family can grow without erasing what we had before. And you think Adrienne is prepared to be a stepmother? Robert asked. She has no experience with children. Her entire life has been devoted to her company. Do you really think she can just set that aside to play house with you and your daughter? I'm not asking her to set anything aside. And this isn't playing house. This is 2 adults building something real together, on their own terms. On your terms, you mean? Victoria's smile was poisonous. You need a wife and a mother for your child. Adrienne needs what exactly? A ready-made family? A chance to play at domesticity without actually having to do the difficult work of building something from scratch? That's not fair, Adrienne said, her voice shaking. You don't know anything about our relationship. We know you, darling. We know how you are when you get fixated on something. You dive in head first without thinking about the consequences. Remember that nonprofit you were going to start, or the year you were certain you wanted to go to medical school? You commit fully to these ideas and then lose interest when they become difficult. This isn't a phase, Mother. I love him. The words hung in the air. It was the first time either of them had said it out loud. Daniel's heart stuttered in his chest as Adrienne continued, her voice gaining strength. I love him. And I love Lily. And we're building something meaningful together. Something real. And yes, it's unconventional. And yes, it happened quickly, but that doesn't make it any less valid. Victoria's expression hardened. You think you love him, just like you thought you loved that artist in college or that journalist 2 years ago. You're infatuated with the idea of him, the romance of saving a struggling single father. I don't need saving, Daniel interrupted, his control finally snapping. And for the record, Mrs. Blake, I'm not struggling. I have a good job, a nice home, savings, a retirement fund. I provide well for my daughter. What I don't have is a mansion in Greenwich or a trust fund or whatever arbitrary markers of success you're using to judge me. But that doesn't make me less worthy of your daughter. Doesn't it? Robert's voice was ice. You work for a company we've never heard of. You drive a... What did you say, Adrian? A Honda? You live in a mortgaged house in the suburbs. You have a child from a previous marriage. Tell me, Mr. Carter, what exactly do you bring to this relationship besides needs? I bring myself, my loyalty, my integrity, my commitment to making Adrian happy. I bring a daughter who's teaching her what unconditional love looks like. I bring the ability to see her for who she actually is, not who you want her to be. How dare you, Victoria started. No, how dare you? Adrian stood abruptly, her napkin falling to the floor. How dare you sit here and dissect my relationship like it's a business deal gone wrong? How dare you insult Daniel and reduce our relationship to some kind of transaction? How dare you imply that Lily is a burden instead of the incredible child she is? Adrian, sit down, Robert commanded. No, I won't. I came here hoping you might be happy for me, hoping you might see what I see in Daniel, a good man, a devoted father, someone who treats me like an equal partner instead of an achievement to unlock. But all you can see is what he doesn't have, his net worth, his pedigree, his social status. You're so obsessed with those things that you can't see what actually matters. What matters is that you're throwing away everything you've built for a man you barely know, Victoria said coldly. You have a successful company, financial independence, respect in your industry, and you're willing to risk all of that for what? Suburban domesticity with someone else's child? Lily is not someone else's child, Daniel said, standing as well. She's my daughter, and the way you're talking about her, like she's a liability, a problem to be solved, tells me everything I need to know about you. We're trying to protect our daughter from making a terrible mistake, Robert said, by insulting the people she cares about, by reducing our relationship to a financial calculation. That's not protection. That's control. You have no idea what you're talking about, Victoria hissed. We've given Adrienne every advantage, every opportunity. We've supported her through every venture, every business decision. And now she's going to throw it all away for a man with nothing to offer but problems and complications. He's not throwing anything away, Adrienne said, her voice deadly quiet. I'm choosing something. I'm choosing a life with people who value me for who I am, not what I can achieve. I'm choosing a partner who respects my work instead of tolerating it. I'm choosing to be part of a real family instead of this cold, transactional relationship you call parenting. Victoria's face went white. How dare you speak to us this way? After everything we've done for you, everything you've done for me came with conditions, strings attached. We'll pay for college if you major in business. We'll invest in your company if you take our advice. We'll approve of your relationships if they meet our standards. Well, I'm done with conditions. I'm done earning your love like it's a merit badge. If you continue this relationship, Robert said, his voice hard, there will be consequences. What kind of consequences? Daniel asked, though he already knew. Financial ones. Adrienne's trust fund has stipulations. If she makes decisions we deem detrimental to her future, you'll cut me off, Adrienne finished. I know. You've been threatening that my entire life. Every time I did something you didn't approve of, there it was. The threat of losing my inheritance, my safety net, your approval? She laughed bitterly. Do you want to know a secret? I don't care anymore. My company is successful. I don't need your money. Don't be naive, Victoria snapped. Your company succeeds because of our connections, our influence in certain circles. Without our support, my company succeeds because I built something good, because I work hard and deliver results. Your connections helped me get started, I'll give you that. But I've earned everything I have since then. This is ridiculous, Robert said, standing. You're being emotional and irrational. We'll discuss this again when you've calmed down and come to your senses. There's nothing to discuss. I'm in love with Daniel. I'm building a life with him and with Lily. And if you can't accept that, if you can't even try to be happy for me, then maybe we need some distance. The words landed like bombs. Victoria's composure finally cracked, her face twisting with anger and something that might have been hurt. You would choose them over us? Over your own family? You're not giving me a choice, Adrienne said quietly. You're making me choose between your approval and my happiness. And I'm choosing happiness. Daniel had been watching this unfold with a growing sense of horror. This was worse than he'd imagined. Adrienne was burning bridges, sacrificing relationships, potentially risking her financial security. For him, for Lily, for a relationship that was still so new, still so fragile. Adrienne, he said softly, maybe we should— No! She turned to him, and he saw tears in her eyes but determination in her jaw. No more compromising. No more trying to make everyone else happy while ignoring what I want. I want this. I want us. And I'm not going to apologize for it or hide it or pretend it's anything less than what it is. You're making a mistake, Victoria said. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make. Adrienne reached for Daniel's hand. We're leaving. If you walk out that door, Robert started. Then I walk out. And you'll have lost your daughter because you couldn't see past your own snobbery and prejudice. Adrienne's voice broke. I love you both, but I love myself more than I love your approval, and I love Daniel and Lily more than I fear your disapproval. She pulled Daniel toward the door. He followed, his mind reeling, barely processing what had just happened. Behind them, he heard Victoria's voice sharp with anger. Don't come crying to us when this falls apart. When you realize what you've given up for a middle-class fantasy that won't last 6 months, we won't be here to pick up the pieces. Adrienne froze in the doorway. For a moment, Daniel thought she might turn back, might try one more time to make them understand. Instead, she squeezed his hand tighter. Goodbye, Mother, Dad. I hope someday you realize what you're losing. They walked out into the cool evening air. Daniel's car looked pathetically out of place in the circular driveway next to a Mercedes and a Jaguar. They got in, and Adrienne immediately curled forward, her head in her hands. I'm sorry, she said, her voice muffled. I'm so sorry you had to witness that. I knew it would be bad, but I didn't think— Don't apologize. Daniel's hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Adrienne, what did you just do? What I should have done years ago. I stood up to them. You might have just lost your inheritance, your trust fund, your family's support for your business. I know. Do you? Do you really understand what you just gave up? For me? For us? She lifted her head, and he saw tears streaming down her face, but also something like liberation in her eyes. I understand perfectly. And I'd do it again. Daniel pulled out of the driveway, his mind churning. The dinner had been a disaster, worse than anything he'd imagined. Adrienne had essentially chosen him over her parents, burned bridges that might never be rebuilt. The weight of that choice pressed down on him like a physical thing. They drove in silence for 20 minutes before Adrienne finally spoke again. Say something, please. I don't know what to say. I'm trying to process what just happened. They were awful. Worse than I warned you they'd be. They were protecting you. In their twisted way, they think they're looking out for your best interests. By insulting you? By calling Lily a burden? Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel. That part I won't forgive. Whatever else they said, however they feel about me, the way they talked about my daughter was unacceptable. I know. I'm so sorry. Stop apologizing. None of this is your fault. He glanced at her. But Adrienne, you need to think about what you just did. Really think about it. You can't undo those words. You can't take back walking out. I don't want to take it back. You say that now. But what about in 6 months, a year? When the dust settles and you realize what standing up to them cost you? It won't change how I feel. You don't know that. Daniel pulled over to the side of the road, unable to drive and have this conversation simultaneously. He turned to face her. Adrienne, I care about you, more than I've cared about anyone since Emma, but I won't be the reason you destroy your relationship with your parents. I won't be responsible for that kind of loss. You're not responsible. I made a choice. A choice you might regret. I won't. How can you be sure? Adrienne reached across the console and took his face in her hands. Because I've spent my entire life being who they wanted me to be. The perfect daughter with the perfect grades and the perfect career. And I've been miserable. Not all the time, not every moment, but underneath it all there's been this emptiness. Like I was performing a role instead of living a life. Her thumbs brushed his cheekbones. And then I met you, and Lily. And for the first time I felt like I was actually present in my own life. Like I mattered because of who I was, not what I achieved. Do you have any idea how rare that is? But your parents will either come around or they won't. But I'm done waiting for their approval to live my life. I'm done letting their expectations dictate my choices. She kissed him softly. I love you, Daniel Carter. I love your daughter. I love the life we're building, and I'm not giving that up. Not for anyone. Daniel kissed her back, tasting salt from her tears, feeling the tremor in her hands. When they finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I love you too, he whispered. I should have said it before. Should have said it when you told your parents. But I love you so much it terrifies me. Good. We can be terrified together. They sat there for a long moment, two people in a Honda on the side of a road in Greenwich, holding on to each other like lifelines. Finally, Daniel pulled back. We should go. I need to get home to Lily, and you probably need time to process everything that just happened. Can I come with you? I don't want to go back to my empty house right now. Daniel thought about Lily, probably still awake despite Mrs. Chen's best efforts, waiting to hear how the dinner went. Thought about bringing Adrienne home in this state, raw and emotionally devastated. Okay, he said, but just tonight. Tomorrow we need to really talk about this, about what it means, what happens next. Tomorrow, Adrienne agreed. They drove back to Daniel's house in silence, but it was a different kind of silence now. Not uncomfortable, but weighted with everything that had happened, everything that had changed. When they pulled into his driveway, Mrs. Chen met them at the door. She's still awake, their neighbor said, eyeing Adrienne's tear-stained face with concern. Said she couldn't sleep until she knew you were home safe. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. I've got it from here. After she left, Daniel found Lily in her bed, pretending to read but clearly watching the door. Her face lit up when she saw him. Daddy, how was... She stopped when she saw Adrienne behind him, her expression shifting to concern. Adrienne? Are you okay? I'm okay, sweetheart, Adrienne said, but her voice cracked on the words. Lily scrambled out of bed and wrapped her arms around Adrienne's waist. Did something bad happen? Adrienne looked at Daniel helplessly. He crouched down to Lily's level. Adrienne's parents said some things that hurt her feelings, so she's sad right now. But she's going to be okay. Did they say mean things about you too, Daddy? Some things, yes. Lily's face hardened in a way that was startlingly adult. That's not nice. You're the best daddy in the whole world. Despite everything, Daniel smiled. Thank you, baby. And Adrienne is really nice too. Why would her parents be mean? Sometimes people don't understand things that are different from what they expect. Adrienne's parents expected her to be with someone different, and when she told them about us, they got upset. But we're great, Lily said with the simple confidence of childhood. We are, Adrienne agreed, her voice thick. We're really great. Then her parents are wrong. Lily took Adrienne's hand. Do you want to sleep over? You can sleep in my room. I have extra pillows. Adrienne laughed through her tears. That's very sweet, Lily. But I think I'll sleep on your couch if your dad says it's okay. Can she, Daddy? Daniel looked at Adrienne, this woman who'd just chosen them over everything she'd known, who was standing in his hallway crying while his daughter tried to comfort her. He thought about all the careful boundaries they'd maintained, the slow progression of their relationship, the deliberate steps they'd taken to protect Lily from getting hurt. All of that felt less important than making sure Adrienne knew she wasn't alone. She can stay, he said softly. Lily cheered and some of the tension finally broke. They got Lily back into bed. Daniel kissed her goodnight, and then he and Adrienne retreated to the living room. He found spare blankets and a pillow while she stood awkwardly in the middle of the room, still in her formal dress and pearls. I have a t-shirt you can sleep in, he offered. Thank you. He brought her one of his old college shirts and a pair of sweatpants that would be too big but better than nothing. She changed in the bathroom and emerged looking younger, vulnerable, more like herself without all the formal armor. They sat on the couch and Adrienne curled into his side. Thank you, she whispered, for not running away screaming after that disaster. I considered it, he admitted, trying to lighten the mood. I wouldn't have blamed you. I know. Daniel kissed the top of her head. But I meant what I said in the car. I love you, and we're going to figure this out. What if my parents never come around? Then we deal with it, together. What if I regret this someday? What if I wake up and realize I gave up too much? Then we'll deal with that too. But Adrienne, he tilted her chin up so she had to look at him. You can't live your life based on what your parents want. You can't keep trying to earn love that should be freely given. At some point, you have to choose yourself. I chose us. You did, and that was incredibly brave. Spot. He kissed her softly. Now you just have to trust that it was the right choice. She kissed him back, deeper this time, and for a moment the world narrowed to just them. When they finally pulled apart, Adrienne's eyes were clearer. I do trust it, she said. Even though it's terrifying and messy and complicated, I trust us. Good, because we're just getting started. They stayed up talking for hours, processing the dinner, discussing what came next, making plans and contingencies. Eventually, exhaustion caught up with them both. Adrienne fell asleep curled against Daniel's chest, and he carefully shifted them so they were lying down, pulling the blanket over both of them. He should have gone to his own bed, should have maintained those boundaries. But tonight, after everything that had happened, he needed to hold her. Needed to remind himself that despite the disaster with her parents, they were still here, still together, still building something worth fighting for. Tomorrow, they would face the consequences. Tomorrow, they would figure out how to move forward with Adrienne's family relationships fractured, possibly beyond repair. Tomorrow, they would navigate the complicated aftermath of choosing each other over everything else. But tonight, in the quiet darkness of his living room, Daniel held the woman he loved and let himself believe that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was choose happiness, even when it cost you everything else. Daniel woke to sunlight streaming through the living room windows and the smell of coffee brewing. For a disoriented moment, he couldn't remember why he was on the couch instead of his bed. Then the memories crashed back. The disastrous dinner, Adrienne's confrontation with her parents, the way she'd chosen them over everything she'd known. He sat up, muscles stiff from sleeping on the couch, and found Adrienne in the kitchen with Lily. They were making pancakes, or attempting to, flour dusting both their faces as Lily giggled at something Adrienne had said. You're supposed to flip it when the bubbles pop, not before, Lily was explaining with the patience of a teacher instructing a particularly slow student. I'm trying, Adrienne protested, laughing, but they keep breaking apart. Because you're not waiting long enough. Here, watch me. Daniel leaned against the doorframe, watching them work together, and felt something loosen in his chest. This was what Adrienne had chosen. Not the mansion in Greenwich or her parents' approval, but Saturday morning pancakes with a 7-year-old in a kitchen that needed repainting. Morning, he said. Both of them turned, Adrienne's smile bright despite the shadows under her eyes. Daddy, Adrienne's teaching me her grandma's pancake recipe, except she's not very good at it yet. I heard that, Adrienne said, swatting playfully at Lily with the spatula. They ate breakfast together, the conversation light and easy, and Daniel almost forgot about the previous night. Almost. But he caught Adrienne checking her phone several times, her expression tightening each time she saw no new messages. After Lily went to play in her room, Daniel and Adrienne sat at the kitchen table with fresh coffee. Have you heard from them? He asked quietly. No, I didn't expect to. Adrienne wrapped her hands around her mug. My parents don't apologize. They wait for you to come crawling back. And if you don't? Then eventually they act like nothing happened. Or they don't. I'm honestly not sure which version I'll get this time. Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. Do you regret it? What you said to them? No. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that they couldn't just be happy for me. But I don't regret standing up for us. Even if they never come around? Even then. She squeezed his fingers. Daniel, I spent 38 years trying to earn their approval, and I finally realized something last night. I'll never earn it. Because their approval isn't based on who I am. It's based on who they want me to be. And I'm done pretending those are the same person. Over the next few weeks, Adrienne proved she meant it. She didn't call her parents, didn't reach out to apologize or explain. When her mother sent a tersely worded email suggesting they discuss this situation when cooler heads prevail, Adrienne replied with a simple statement that she was happy with Daniel and Lily, and her parents were welcome to be part of that happiness or not, but the relationship wasn't up for negotiation. Victoria's response was radio silence. But if Adrienne was struggling with her family's rejection, she channeled it into building the family she'd chosen. She started spending more nights at Daniel's house, her toothbrush permanently in the bathroom now, her clothes taking up half his closet. She learned Lily's schedule, her preferences, her moods. She attended school conferences and helped with homework and sat through a truly terrible school play where Lily played a tree with more enthusiasm than skill. She was the best tree up there, Adrienne declared afterward, and Lily beamed. They fell into a rhythm that felt natural, inevitable. Daniel would cook dinner while Adrienne helped Lily with her homework. They'd watch movies together on Friday nights, Lily wedged between them on the couch. Adrienne started leaving work earlier to pick Lily up from after-school care, and she'd arrive at Daniel's house with his daughter chattering about her day, both of them laughing about some shared joke. It was domestic and ordinary, and completely unlike the life Adrienne had lived before. And watching her embrace it, Daniel fell more deeply in love every day. 2 months after the disastrous dinner, Daniel's phone rang with an unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Mr. Carter? This is Robert Blake, Adrienne's father." Daniel's hand tightened on the phone. "Mr. Blake, I'm calling because, well, my wife and I would like to speak with you. In person. Just you, if possible." Every instinct Daniel had screamed that this was a trap. Why? "Because we've been doing some thinking about what happened, about what Adrienne said." Robert's voice was stiff, formal. "And we'd like a chance to have a conversation without the emotions of that evening clouding things." "Does Adrienne know you're calling?" "No, we thought it best to speak with you first." Absolutely a trap. Daniel should refuse, should tell them to contact their daughter directly if they wanted to talk. But something in Robert's voice, a note of what might have been uncertainty, made him pause. When and where? They met at a coffee shop in neutral territory, halfway between Daniel's house and Greenwich. Robert and Victoria arrived together, looking uncomfortable in the casual environment. Robert wore a suit despite it being Saturday morning. Victoria's designer handbag probably cost more than Daniel's monthly mortgage payment. Daniel ordered black coffee and waited for them to make the first move. "Thank you for meeting with us," Robert said after an awkward silence. "We weren't sure you would." "I almost didn't. We wouldn't have blamed you. The way we behaved at dinner was—" He seemed to struggle with the word. "Inappropriate." "It was cruel," Daniel said flatly. "You insulted me, you insulted my daughter, and you made Adrienne choose between her family and her happiness. That's not inappropriate. That's unforgivable." Victoria flinched but held his gaze. "You're right. It was all of those things." The admission startled Daniel into silence. "We've had 2 months to think about that evening," Victoria continued. 2 months of Adrienne not speaking to us, not returning calls, not answering emails beyond those brief professional responses. And it's been, her voice cracked slightly, illuminating. Illuminating how? Robert took over. "We've always believed we were protecting Adrienne, guiding her toward the best possible life. When she told us about you, about your daughter, all we could see was risk. Someone taking advantage of her success, someone pulling her away from the life we'd envisioned for her. And now? Now we've watched our daughter choose to lose her family rather than lose you. That kind of conviction, it made us reconsider our assumptions." "So you've decided I'm acceptable after all?" Daniel couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. "We've decided we don't know you," Victoria said quietly. "We made judgments based on circumstances instead of character, and we're ashamed of that." Daniel studied them both, looking for signs of manipulation or hidden agenda. He saw discomfort, awkwardness, and what might have been genuine remorse. "Why are you telling me this instead of Adrienne?" "Because we owe you an apology," Robert said. "What we said about your daughter, about you being a gold digger, about your worth as a partner, it was unacceptable, and we want to apologize directly. You called Lily a burden." Victoria's eyes welled with tears. "I know, and I've regretted those words every day since. We've never even met her, and we dismissed her as an inconvenience." "What kind of people does that make us?" "The kind who value status over humanity," Daniel said bluntly. "The kind who taught your daughter that love is conditional. The kind who would rather lose her than admit you might be wrong." "You're not pulling any punches," Robert observed. "Why should I? You didn't." "Fair enough," Robert took a sip of his coffee, grimacing slightly at the taste. Mr. Carter, Daniel, we're not asking for your forgiveness. We're asking for a chance to do better, to meet Lily, to get to know you properly, to be part of our daughter's life again, if she'll allow it. That's not up to me. That's up to Adriana checked. We know. But we wanted you to understand that we're sincere, that this isn't a manipulation or an attempt to break you up. We've realized that whether we approve or not, Adrienne has chosen you. And we can either accept that and try to build a relationship with the family she's creating, or we can lose her entirely. Victoria's hands trembled slightly around her cup. We don't want to lose her. Daniel thought about Adrienne's face when she talked about her parents. The hurt beneath the anger, the way she'd spent her whole life trying to earn their love. If I agree to this, he said slowly, if I tell Adrienne you want to try again, you need to understand something. You don't get to hurt her again. You don't get to dangle approval and then yank it away when she doesn't meet your standards. Either you accept us, all of us, including Lily, or you stay away. We understand, Robert said. Do you? Because Lily is 7 years old. She's sweet and trusting, and she's already lost one mother. I won't let her get attached to grandparents who might decide she's not good enough. We would never, Victoria started. You already did. That night at dinner, you made it clear you saw her as a problem. So if you want a chance to be part of this family, you need to prove you've changed. Not just say it, prove it. They talked for another hour. Daniel asked hard questions, and to their credit, Robert and Victoria answered honestly. They admitted they'd been controlling, that they'd tied love to achievement, that they'd failed Adrienne in fundamental ways. They talked about their own upbringings, the expectations that had been placed on them, the cycle they'd perpetuated without examining it. It didn't excuse their behavior, but it explained it. I'll talk to Adrienne, Daniel said finally, but I'm not promising anything. If she says no, if she's not ready to let you back in, you have to respect that. We will, Victoria promised. Just tell her we love her, that we're sorry, that we want to try. Daniel drove home with his mind spinning. Part of him wanted to protect Adrienne from more disappointment, to shield her from parents who'd hurt her so badly. But another part remembered the sadness in her voice when she talked about them, the loss beneath the anger. She deserved the chance to decide for herself. He found her at his house, as usual now, helping Lily build an elaborate fort out of couch cushions and blankets. Daddy, look how big we made it, Lily called from inside the fort. It's very impressive, sweetheart. Adrienne emerged, her hair mussed and a smile on her face that faded when she saw his expression. What's wrong? Can we talk? After Lily goes to bed? The worry in her eyes made his chest ache, but he kept his voice light. Nothing bad, I promise. Just something we need to discuss. That evening, after Lily was asleep, they sat on the porch with glasses of wine. Adrienne was tense, waiting. Your parents called me, Daniel said without preamble. She went very still. When? Earlier this week. They asked to meet with me. I saw them this morning. You saw them? Her voice was flat. Without telling me. They asked me not to. They wanted to talk to me first. About what? Offering you money to leave? Threatening you? Apologizing, actually. Adrienne's wine glass paused halfway to her lips. What? They apologized. For what they said at dinner, for how they treated me and Lily, for making you choose. They want a chance to try again, to meet Lily properly, to be part of our lives. You're joking. I'm not. They seem genuine, Adrienne. Your mother cried when we talked about what she said about Lily. My mother doesn't cry. She did today. Daniel took her hand. Look, I'm not saying you should forgive them immediately, and I'm not saying we should trust them without proof, but they're trying, and I think maybe they deserve a chance to do better. Adrienne pulled her hand away, standing abruptly. Do you have any idea how many times they've done this? Made promises to change, to be better, only to go right back to their controlling ways the moment I didn't meet their expectations? I don't, but I know how much it hurts you that they're not in your life. I see it every time Lily talks about my parents, every time we do something with family and yours aren't there. That's my choice. I know, and I'll support whatever you decide. But Adrienne, he stood moving to her. You gave me a chance when I was a stranger in a restaurant. You took a risk on something unconventional and uncertain. Maybe your parents deserve the same chance. It's not the same. isn't it? We're asking them to accept something that goes against everything they believe, to change fundamental assumptions about what makes a good life, a good partner, a good family. That's not easy. They should love me enough to try. And maybe they do. Maybe that's why they're here, attempting to make amends. Daniel cupped her face gently. I'm not saying forgive them. I'm saying consider giving them a chance to earn forgiveness. Adrienne was quiet for a long moment, her eyes searching his face. What did you tell them? That if they wanted back in your life, they had to prove they'd changed. That they had to accept all of us, including Lily, without conditions or judgment. And that if they hurt you again, they're done. No more chances. And what did they say? That they understood. That they want to try. I don't know if I can trust them. Then don't. Not yet. Make them earn it. He kissed her forehead. But at least hear them out. Let them say what they need to say. Then decide. It took another week before Adrienne agreed to meet with her parents. Daniel offered to come with her, but she insisted on going alone. She needed to face them herself, to set her own boundaries without worrying about protecting him. She was gone for 3 hours. When she finally returned to Daniel's house, her eyes were red, but her expression was lighter than he'd seen it in months. They want to meet Lily, she said, properly this time, if you're okay with it. What happened? They apologized. Really apologized, not the half-hearted kind they usually give. My mother actually admitted she was wrong, which I've never heard her do in my entire life. Adrienne sank onto the couch. They told me about their childhoods, about the pressure they faced, about how they'd just been repeating the same patterns they learned. It doesn't excuse what they did, but it helped me understand. And you believe they've changed? I believe they're trying to change. That's enough for now. She looked at him. They asked if they could come to dinner. Here. Meet Lily in her own environment where she's comfortable. Would that be okay? Daniel thought about the risk, the potential for disappointment, but he also thought about family, about second chances, about the fact that Adrienne had given him one when she had no reason to. Okay, but we prepare Lily first. We make sure she understands who they are, and that if she's uncomfortable at any point, we'll make them leave. Agreed. They told Lily that evening, explaining carefully that Adrienne's parents wanted to visit, that they'd said some unkind things before but were sorry and wanted to try again. Are they nice now? Lily asked with a child's directness. They're trying to be, Adrienne said, but if they say anything that makes you uncomfortable, you tell me right away, okay? Okay. Can I show them my dinosaur collection? Daniel laughed despite his nerves. If you want to, sweetheart. The dinner was scheduled for the following Saturday. Daniel cleaned the house obsessively, changed his shirt 3 times, and generally made himself crazy with anxiety. Adrienne was calmer, or at least better at hiding her nerves. When the doorbell rang at exactly 6 o'clock, Daniel took a deep breath and opened the door. Robert and Victoria Blake stood on his modest porch looking profoundly uncomfortable. Victoria held a wrapped package and a bouquet of flowers. Robert carried a bottle of wine that probably cost more than Daniel's weekly grocery budget. Mr. and Mrs. Blake, come in. They entered cautiously, taking in the lived-in house with its scuffed floors and family photos and general air of comfortable chaos. Daniel saw Victoria's eyes linger on a picture of Emma holding baby Lily, saw something like understanding cross her face. These are for you, Victoria said, offering the flowers. And this is for Lily. We weren't sure what 7-year-old girls liked, so we asked the woman at the toy store. Before Daniel could respond, Lily appeared from the hallway. She'd insisted on wearing her favorite dress, the purple one with dinosaurs on it, and had carefully combed her hair. She looked at Victoria and Robert with open curiosity. Hi, she said. I'm Lily. Are you Adrienne's parents? We are, Robert said, and Daniel heard his voice catch slightly. It's very nice to meet you, Lily. You too. Adrienne says you have a really big house. We do, but I think your house is nicer. Lily tilted her head. Why? Because it feels like a home. Ours feels like a museum. It was exactly the right thing to say. Lily beamed. Want to see my room? I have a fossil collection. We'd love to, Victoria said, and the tremor in her voice was unmistakable. Lily grabbed Victoria's hand with the unselfconscious ease of childhood and dragged her down the hallway, chattering about trilobites and ammonites. Robert followed more slowly, but Daniel saw the wonder in his face as he listened to Lily's enthusiastic explanations. Adrienne appeared beside Daniel, slipping her hand into his. They're trying. They are. Dinner was less awkward than Daniel feared. Robert asked him questions about his work with genuine interest. Victoria listened to Lily's stories about school and friends and her upcoming science fair project. They were stiff, formal, clearly out of their element in this casual family environment. But they were trying. The turning point came during dessert. Lily was showing Victoria pictures of Emma on Daniel's phone, explaining who her mother had been. She was really pretty, Lily said. And she painted. Daddy has some of her paintings in his room. I'd love to see them sometime, Victoria said softly. Do you miss her? Lily asked with a child's blunt curiosity. Daniel tensed, ready to intervene, but Victoria answered honestly. I never met her, sweetheart, but I can tell she must have been wonderful because she was your mother. I miss her a lot, but Daddy says it's okay to be happy even when you're sad about something. Lily looked at Adrienne. And Adrienne makes us happy. I can see that, Victoria said, and when she looked at Adrienne, there were tears in her eyes. I'm very glad she found you both. After Lily went to bed, the four adults sat in the living room with coffee. There was a long silence before Robert spoke. We owe all of you an apology, especially you, Lily, though she's too young to fully understand. We made judgments without knowledge, assumptions without basis. We were wrong. You were, Adrienne agreed. You hurt me, badly. And it's going to take time before I fully trust you again. We understand, Victoria said, and we'll do whatever it takes to earn that trust. We've already started seeing a therapist, a family counselor who specializes in... She trailed off uncomfortably. In controlling parents learning to let go, Robert finished. It's not easy. We're having to examine patterns we've held our entire lives. But we're committed to changing. Why now? Daniel asked. What made you decide to try? Victoria looked at him directly. Because I realized I was going to lose my daughter. Really lose her, not just have her keep us at arm's length. And when I thought about never meeting her family, never knowing her children if she had them, never being part of her life, I realized our pride wasn't worth that cost. You made her happy, Robert added, looking at Daniel. I saw it immediately when we met for coffee. Adrienne talks about you and Lily with a joy I've never heard from her before. Not about her company, not about her achievements. Pure happiness. And I realized that's what we should have wanted for her all along. It wasn't a perfect resolution. There were still awkward moments, still times when Victoria's ingrained snobbery showed through, or Robert made assumptions based on his worldview. But they caught themselves, apologized, tried again. They started coming to dinner once a week, gradually becoming part of the family's routine. They learned Lily's schedule, her interests, her quirks. They asked Daniel about his work with genuine curiosity, treating him as an equal rather than someone beneath their daughter. And slowly, carefully, Adrienne began to trust them again. 3 months later, on a warm evening in August, Adrienne and Daniel sat on his porch after putting Lily to bed. It had become their routine, this quiet time together at the end of the day. Adrienne was curled against his side, his arm around her shoulders. I've been thinking, she said quietly. About? About this. Us. About how this started and where we are now. Daniel's heart rate picked up slightly. Okay. Adrienne sat up, turning to face him. We began this as an arrangement, a practical partnership between two people who were tired of being alone, and it became something so much more than that. It did. I love you, Daniel Carter. I love Lily. I love the life we've built together. I love coming home to this house and finding dinosaur toys in the kitchen sink. I love helping with homework and making dinner and having ridiculous arguments about whether dinosaurs could have survived the Ice Age. They couldn't have, Daniel interjected. That's not the point. She laughed, then her expression turned serious. The point is, I want this to be permanent. I want to be part of this family officially, if you'll have me. Daniel's breath caught. Adrienne, are you? I'm asking you to marry me, she said simply. Both of you. I'm asking if I can be Lily's stepmother and your wife, and if we can make this official. You're proposing to me. I am. Is that okay? I know traditionally... Daniel kissed her, cutting off the words. When they finally pulled apart, he was smiling. It's more than okay. It's perfect. Yes. Absolutely yes. Adrian's face lit up with pure joy. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small box. I have something for Lily too, if you think it's appropriate. She opened the box to reveal a delicate silver bracelet with a small charm shaped like a dinosaur. I wanted to ask her too, to make sure she knows she's part of this decision, that I'm choosing both of you. Daniel's throat was tight with emotion. She's going to love it, they told Lily the next morning. She was eating cereal at the kitchen table, still in her pajamas, when Adrienne knelt beside her chair. Lily, I want to ask you something important. Lily set down her spoon, eyes wide. Okay. You know how much I love you and your dad, right? Right. Well, I want to be part of your family forever, officially. I want to marry your dad and be your stepmom, but only if that's okay with you. Lily's face went through a series of expressions. Surprise, confusion, then pure delight. Really? You want to stay forever? Forever, Adrienne confirmed. I got you something to show how serious I am. She opened the box and Lily gasped at the bracelet. It has a dinosaur. I know you love dinosaurs, and I wanted you to have something special to remind you that I'll always be here for you. Lily threw her arms around Adrienne's neck. Yes, yes, you can be my stepmom. Can I call you Mom? Adrienne's eyes filled with tears. If you want to, but you don't have to. Whatever feels right to you. I want to. I still have a mom, but she's in heaven, and you're here. So maybe I can have two moms? You absolutely can have two moms, Daniel said, his own voice thick with emotion. They planned a small wedding in the park where Daniel and Adrienne had first introduced Lily to each other. Just family and close friends, nothing fancy or formal. Adrienne wore a simple white dress. Daniel wore the suit he'd finally made peace with. And Lily wore a purple dress with her dinosaur bracelet and carried a bouquet of wildflowers. Daniel's parents flew in from Florida, beaming with joy. And in a moment that made Adrienne cry, Victoria and Robert attended too, sitting in the front row with expressions of genuine happiness. The ceremony was officiated by a friend of Daniel's, and they wrote their own vows. Daniel went first. Adrienne, when you walked up to my table on Christmas night, I thought you were crazy. I probably still think you're a little crazy. Laughter rippled through the small gathering. But you saw something in me I'd stopped seeing in myself. You saw a man worth taking a risk on. A family worth choosing. You've brought joy and laughter and so much love into our lives. You've shown Lily what it means to be strong and independent and kind. And you've shown me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust in something unconventional. I love you. And I promise to spend the rest of my life making you happy you took that chance. Adrienne wiped tears from her eyes before beginning her own vows. Daniel, you taught me that family isn't about biology or obligation. It's about choice, about showing up every day and choosing to love someone. You've been patient with me as I learned how to be part of something bigger than myself. You've never made me feel like I had to be less than who I am. And Lily, she looked down at the little girl standing beside them, holding both their hands. Lily, you've taught me more about love in 6 months than I learned in 38 years before I met you. You've taught me that love is simple and pure and given freely. You've trusted me with your heart, and I promise to take care of it forever. I promise to show up for school plays and help with homework and listen to dinosaur facts, even when I don't understand them. I promise to love you both with everything I have. There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. After they exchanged rings, Adrienne pulled out one more surprise. She knelt down to Lily's level and held out a small ring box. This is for you, she said. It's a promise ring. A promise that I'll always be here for you, that you can count on me, that I'm your family now if you'll have me. Inside was a delicate silver ring with a small purple stone. It matches your bracelet, Lily said with wonder. It does, so we match. A family. Lily threw her arms around Adrienne again, and the three of them stood there, wrapped in each other, while their friends and family applauded. The reception was in Daniel's backyard, with string lights and a potluck dinner and music from someone's phone. It was nothing like the formal wedding Adrienne's parents probably expected, but Victoria and Robert seemed genuinely happy, chatting with Daniel's parents about their shared grandchild. At one point, Victoria pulled Adrienne aside. I'm proud of you. she said quietly. Truly. You've built something beautiful here. Thank you, Mom. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it, to see that what you needed wasn't what I thought you needed. Adrienne hugged her mother, something she couldn't remember doing since childhood. I'm just glad you're here. As the evening wore on and the sun set, Daniel and Adrienne sat on the porch steps, watching Lily play with their friends' children in the yard. Do you ever think about how we started? Adrienne asked. About how insane this whole thing was? Every day, Daniel admitted. Sometimes I still can't believe you actually walked up to a stranger and proposed an arranged marriage. Partnership, she corrected. I proposed a partnership. Same difference. It's not, actually. A partnership is what we still have. We're equals. We choose each other every day. Daniel kissed her temple. I choose you. Every single day. Even when I burn dinner? Especially then. Your terrible cooking keeps me humble. She laughed and swatted at him. I'm getting better. You are. Last week's attempt at lasagna was almost edible. You're terrible. You love me anyway. I really do. Adrienne leaned her head on his shoulder. Thank you. For what? For taking a chance on a crazy woman in a restaurant, for trusting me with your daughter, for showing me what a real family feels like. Thank you for seeing something in me worth pursuing, for not giving up when things got hard, for choosing us over everything else. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their daughter play as the stars began to appear overhead. Somewhere in the house, Daniel's parents were arguing good-naturedly with Adrienne's parents about the best way to make coffee. The sound of laughter drifted through the open windows. You know what's funny? Adrienne said. I spent my whole life chasing success, thinking achievement would make me happy. And it turns out what I needed was this. Saturday nights in a suburban backyard. A daughter who teaches me about dinosaurs. A husband who makes terrible jokes. Hey, my jokes are excellent. They're really not, she grinned, but I love them anyway. Lily ran over, breathless and grass-stained. Mom, can we have s'mores, please? Adrienne's eyes filled with tears at the casual use of mom, but she blinked them back. Of course we can. Go ask your dad to start the fire pit. Your dad, Lily said, looking at Daniel. Can you? Absolutely, sweetheart. As Daniel went to set up the fire pit and Lily raced back to her friends, Adrienne sat alone on the porch for just a moment. She thought about Christmas night 9 months ago, sitting alone at a restaurant bar, watching a man get stood up by his date. Thought about the impulse that had made her walk over, the crazy proposition she'd made, the unlikely partnership they'd formed. It should never have worked. By all logic, by all conventional wisdom, approaching a stranger with a business proposal for marriage should have ended in disaster. Instead, it had ended in this. In a family built not by biology or tradition, but by choice, by courage, by two people brave enough to try something unconventional and trust enough to let it become something real. She heard Lily's laughter, Daniel's voice calling for marshmallows, her mother's surprised laugh at something Robert had said. She heard the sound of family, messy and imperfect and absolutely perfect all at once. Adrienne, Lily called, come make s'mores with us. Coming. She stood, brushing off her dress, and walked toward the fire pit where her family waited. Her family, not the one she'd been born into, though they were finding their way back to each other. Not the one she'd expected or the one anyone would have predicted, but the one she'd chosen, the one she'd fought for, the one that had started with a crazy proposition on Christmas night and had become the realest, truest thing in her life. Daniel looked up as she approached, his face illuminated by firelight, and held out his hand. Adrienne took it, settling beside him as Lily climbed into her lap, sticky marshmallow already on her fingers. I love you, Daniel murmured against her hair. I love you too, Adrienne whispered back. Both of you. Forever. And in that moment, surrounded by the family they'd built from courage and choice and unconventional love, Adrienne knew with absolute certainty that walking up to a stranger's table on Christmas night had been the sanest, bravest, best decision she'd ever made. Because sometimes the most logical thing you can do is take a chance on something completely illogical. Sometimes the safest bet is the riskiest move. And sometimes family isn't about following the traditional path. It's about having the courage to forge your own.